Yahweh is not God. Jehovah is not God. Adonai is not God. Lord in the Bible is not God. And this amazing book that I have right here, this is not about God. God is not in this book. This is a collection, a library that I call Humanity's Library. It's our stories. It's very human stories if you've read it. I love this book. And all of the pseudepigrapha and apocrypha, I read them, I love them. I'm not anti-Bible. I'm actually pro-Bible now that I know what the Bible really is and that the Bible is not from God at all. Welcome to The Real God is Not in the Bible. So we're here every Wednesday evening. How you loving, how you loving, how you loving? Come on in. Come on in. I am Reverend Valerie Love, a minister of spiritual consciousness, divine midwife of soul destiny, author of 26 books. Wow, Jesus, thank you. Author of 26 books on practical spirituality, including the very popular, hot-selling, sells every day Christian Witchcraft Starter Kit, including how to be a Christian witch, magical prayers for the Christian witch, spellcrafting for the Christian witch. Yes, I am a practicing Christian witch. I just did a beautiful ritual over the weekend for New Moon in Taurus for many members of our community. So if you're new here, and you've never been on this show before, welcome. I'm here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. live. This is our live show. And this current series that we're in is called The Real God is Not in the Bible. And so every time people hear me say that, they think I'm an atheist. No, I'm not an atheist. And I love the questions that I get on TikTok, because on TikTok they say, well, if the real God's not in the Bible, where's the real God? I'm going to show you that. And I'm also going to show you scholarly evidence, because we're not about belief around here. We don't need belief. We don't need belief. You and I, we are intelligent beings. We have a mind that can that deduce, that can reflect, ponder, consider, digest, and come to our own conclusions. I highly respect you as a person that can come to your own conclusions about all the things that I talk about here. I don't ask anyone to believe me. I don't think anyone should believe anything. I think you should go find out for yourself. That's what we're talking about today. And if that's okay with you, wonderful. I'm just going to slip on a little bit of lipstick and lip gloss because I did not finish. how how insane is that I'm putting on lipstick in the middle of the live stream? It's okay. Uh, Hold on. Good. Now I need a little bit of lip gloss, and then we're gonna roll. Yes, that's me. Mm. Okay, family. Now I'm ready. The Bible. Oh my goodness. Is the Bible amazing? The Bible is so freaking amazing. This book, I promise you, this book is magical. This book is amazing. Not because it came from God. I love this book so much more now that I know it didn't come from God. Oh my God, I love this book so much more now, because now I can read it as wonderful stories. I can read it as allegory, astrology, and not prophecy. I can read it as some of the mistakes humans have made over the years. I can read it as rise and falls of kingdoms. It's got dragons. It's got talking animals. It's got witches. It's got necromancy. It's got metaphor mythology. This is an epic, legendary collection of literature. I mean, just epic. It's just epic. And absolutely, there's wisdom in here. Absolutely, just like in Aesop's fables. And I don't think Aesop's fables came from God. There is allegory. There are good lessons to be learned from Harry Potter. And I don't think Harry Potter came from God. There are excellent lessons to be learned from Lord of the Rings, all mythologies. I don't think Lord of the Rings came from God. I'm not confused about that. And I am seeking to dispel any confusion we have around the Bible. Where did it come from? Who's God? And who's really in charge of this whole cosmos? Who's in charge of this whole thing? Let's get to it. We're going to go on live stream. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to go on live stream and we're going to have a really good conversation about Yahweh. And how did he get to be God? If he's not God, who is God? I'm going to answer that question. And what is really going on? I've got so much good deliciousness to share with you today. Oh my goodness. So delicious. So let's get to it. So, first of all, I do want to say, what is the purpose of this series? Because a lot of people think that I'm here to debunk Christianity. Well, I am debunking Christianity as it was taught to us. Because as it was taught to us was not what Christ stood for. So I am a Christian witch, and for me, that means a witch who more aspires to Christ's consciousness of oneness and wholeness, perfection, beauty, and rather than forgiveness and acceptance of all people, rather than the very splintered, strange concoction of the Roman Catholic Church that was given to us. The Romans gave us Christianity as we have it today, and then it morphed over many years and centuries. So I do not in any way confuse the true message of God with what the Romans gave us. So if you go in most churches today, you're getting the Roman version. And you may say, well, that was the Roman Catholic Church. And then we had the Protestant Revolution, and the Protestants and the Anglicans and many other groups of people broke away from the Romans, yet you're birthed out of the same mother. Birthed out of the same mother. So it took a lot from the Roman Catholic Church, and it did do some edits. Yet it didn't bring us all the way back to the original message of Christ. I do suspect that the closest group to the true original teachings of Christ would have been the Essenes or the Gnostics, from all of my study and research and reflection and meditation and searching and asking and putting together my own conclusions. I would say that the Gnostics were pretty on point, because the Gnostics knew that the God of the Garden of Eden was evil and that the serpent was not. Christians got it confused because later on they said that the Garden of Eden serpent was the devil. They mixed that up. There's nothing in the Bible that says that, other than some obscure verse in Revelation that people just took and ran with and are convinced that the serpent in the Garden of Eden is the same as the devil. Strange beliefs, but we have a lot of strange beliefs, and we just get to get rid of them. So the purpose that I am doing this series is to really reveal our true origins and nature. And a lot of it has to do also with our ancient star visitors who came here hundreds of thousands of years ago, or thousands of years ago, tens of thousands of years ago, whatever dating you'd like to put on it. Also known as the Anunnaki, the Elohim is what they're called in the Bible. The book of Enoch calls them the Watchers, or the book of Enoch doesn't call the Elohim, the Anunnaki watchers. They call the Ijiji watchers. So in some places they're called the Ijiji. In the book of Enoch, they're called the watchers. In other places, they're called the Beni Elohim, meaning sons of God. So in other words, the high gods, quote unquote, the Anunnaki, like Anu, overseeing the Sky Council, as well as Enlil, Enki, Inanna, Ninhursag, and others. There were other notables in there like Ninurta and Geshida, and yeah, there were many other notables in there. That the Ijiji, the lesser race, quote unquote, the lesser race of gods, none of them were gods as far as I'm concerned. I view them as simply beings. I don't view them as gods. So therefore, these characters, these Anunnaki characters that were here many, many, many years ago, they have a very integral um, role in our beliefs. I never knew this. I never knew this until I started to do massive research. I never knew this. Now I do know it. So I want to talk about our true origins. I want to talk about our divine nature. That even though the Anunnaki took an existing hominid, right, a bipedal hominid that was maybe sort of upright, sort of not, and spliced it with their genome, and voila, humans were the product of this genetic mashup. I still desire to convey the understanding that we are divine in our nature. That's the thing to understand. We have cosmic parents, ancestors, and we have human primate ancestors. That's beautiful. It's probably what Darwin was picking up, that why are we so close to the primates? There's a reason, and it ain't evolution. Evolution, no, that's another scam. No. Okay. And I want to bring us evidence, conclusive evidence, that this beautiful collection of literature, this wonderful, that has been collected together and put into one wonderful volume for us, is not from God. It's not inspired by God. It's not written by God. This book has nothing to do with God. This is a human book. This is humanity's legacy, going all the way back to the Anunnaki. This is humanity's legacy. It had nothing to do with God. This is for us. Leave God out of this, because the true God cannot be confined to any book, and the true God is not in any book. And because we've just been so brainwashed, we believe that this is a holy book. Oh, see, it even says it right here, Holy Bibles. Nothing holy about this. This is no more holy than Shakespeare. I know that sounds heretical. I also want to free us from the belief that you have to live by this book. That's a burden we don't have to carry anymore. You don't have to live by this book. You are released, hereby released from anything in this book. This book is wonderful. You don't have to follow it. Now, let's get to the real thing, that we really want to come into peace and oneness. And when I say oneness, I don't mean that everyone has to believe the same thing. When I say oneness, I mean that we all understand that we have common source, which is the infinite source, and that even when we disagree in the things that we talk about and how we worship, which we should all have our own ways of worshiping and of reaching the divine, or not worshiping at all if you're an atheist or agnostic, that we understand that there's no use in fighting over a God or a holy book. Let's just be in peace about this thing. And we've got a lot of fighting on this planet, and most of the fighting that has gone on this planet has been about God, quote unquote. That wasn't really what it was about. That's what they said it was about. Oh, I'm doing this for God. No, you're not. You're doing it for yourself, for power and control, and to take over of the people's countries, lands, beliefs. Y'all didn't do that for God. You did it for yourselves. And I think it's just time that we have the truth about that. Okay, in this discussion, this is what we're going to cover. Yahweh is not God. Jehovah is not God. Adonai is not God. Lord, as you read it in the Bible, is not God. The Bible is not about God. Now let's get to it. So inevitably, the question that arises, if I say that the real God is not in the Bible, Yahweh is not God, Jehovah is not God, Adonai is not God, Allah is not God, Jesus is not God, Yeshua is not God, Yehoshua is not God. All these versions of Yeshua, Joshua, Jesus, Yehoshua, not God. Then who is God? That's what people ask. Well, then who is God? What is God? God is infinite consciousness, the source, and it's not even spiritual. It's energetic. It is you. Now, let me come off screen share and share with you a little bit about how I came to this conclusion. Because you may be wondering, how in the world did this woman come to such a heretical conclusion? I'm going to tell you how I came to this quite heretical conclusion. A whole lot of meditation and a lot of plant medicine. Kid you not. Ayahuasca, where when you are in an ayahuasca experience, and I'm not saying to you that you are supposed to go out and take ayahuasca right now. Hear me clearly. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I was inspired and drawn and called and heard the call of Mother Ayahuasca from deep in the Amazon. And I answered the call. And when I did, scales fell from my eyes. Decades of meditation, meditation led me to one place and one place only within here. This is God. You can't find God outside of yourself. This is not a belief that I have, it's a knowing. Now, that was my journey. I can't tell you what your journey is. You must experience your journey. I'm sharing my journey. And what I know better than I know my name is that the infinite source is all there is. So there is. And the nature of the infinite source is love. And then the expression of the infinite source is compassion. And this infinite source is energetic. It never had a name. It doesn't have a color. It doesn't love this group of people more than that group. It doesn't have a gender. It doesn't have a child that came to the world to save you. They made that shit up. They made it up. It never told you were sinful. This infinite source never conveyed to my consciousness anything about being sinful. It only conveyed to me the infinite perfection and infinite beauty that it is. That's all. And to the point of awe where tears would just stream from my eyes. And I know you've had those experiences too. And maybe you've had those experiences in church, which led you to believe that church was right. No. Just because we have a spiritual experience in church doesn't mean the church is right. It means that that was the trigger for our church, our spiritual experience. The trigger for your spiritual experience could see a baby being born. The trigger for your experience could be a rose. The trigger for your spiritual experience could be a beautiful sunset on Maui Beach. Anything and everything could trigger, but we don't think that if I'm on the beach in Maui, and there's this gorgeous sunset, and I'm just in awe, like, because I've been on the beach in Maui, and Oprah has a home in Maui, and she talks about these sunsets in Maui that are so epic that they actually remember certain ones, like, oh, that one in 1980. Like, how do y'all remember sunsets? Like, that's how epic these sunsets are. And when I was on the beach in Maui many, many, many years ago, this probably was in 2004. 21 years ago, I was on the beach in Maui. And we had spent the day on the beach in Maui. We were packing up to get ready to go. And all of a sudden, there was like this hush that fell over the people on the beach. And even the kids. And then people started turning. And we looked in the sky. And there was this epic sunset. I mean, purples and oranges and golds. And it was breathtaking. And people were just like, oh. We were in awe. Now, it didn't matter if you were an atheist or a Baptist. Nobody was running around taking tolls and count. Are you a Baptist looking at the sunset? Okay. Are you a Catholic looking at the sunset? Okay. Are you a Jewish person looking at the sunset? Are you a Jehovah's Witness? Are you, you're atheist? No one was taking a census of all of us looking at we were all in awe. It was like just something came over the beach in Maui. If you've been to the beach in Maui, talk to me. Put it in the chat if y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm sure you do, family. And so we experience this awe. And many times you may have experienced this awe in your life, like maybe the awe of a baby being born when you first saw your baby born, or the awe of maybe you worked on a farm and you saw an animal being born, or you saw a chick pecking out of its shell. No one says in those moments, oh, I think I need to worship this sun on Maui forever. Oh, I think I need to worship this baby forever. Oh, I think I need to worship this chickie forever. But why, when you have a spiritual experience in church, you think, oh, I have to worship here forever? It's not required. It triggered something in you. It was in here all along, boo. It ain't nowhere else. It ain't nowhere else. It ain't nowhere else. I keep telling people, what you're looking for is right here. It's right here. It's right here. It's right here. It's right here. You are it. You are it. And the biggest lie they told you, the biggest lie they told you was that you were sinful, and the power and the majesty and the beauty and the awe was outside of yourself, up there with the sky daddy. The biggest scam they ran on you. Because now it's easy to control that type of consciousness and keep you obedient, obeying and praying and paying, as they say. Paying with your tithes and your energy. I used to do it. I used to do it. And with your obedience, obeying and bringing your energy there and praying. That's why I stopped praying. I didn't stop praying because I became faithless. I'm not a faithless person. I completely trust the universe of life. I love the universe of life. I'm not a faithless person. I'm a pragmatic person. I'm a person of intellect. And I'm also a person that understands energy. No, boo. Praying is something outside yourself. That's a fool's errand. That is a fool's errand. Now, it's okay if you want to do it, because everybody gets to choose what to do. And I'm not here to tell anyone what to do, but that's not my job. I am an ordained minister of spiritual consciousness. It is my job to share truth. That's my job. Do with it what you will, right? I'm not here to tell anyone what to think. I would never insult your intelligence like that, because I know how intelligent you are. I know how perfect you are. I know that you are the divine expression and an emanation of the infinite source. So when people say, oh, God's not, so it's not in here, baby. You want to find God? Look in the mirror. And so then they get very upset because they say, oh my goodness, get blasphemer. You're saying that you're God. I didn't say I was God. I didn't say I made the whole universe. You see, this is how people they get off and running to error-filled conclusions. I never said that. I never said I created all the oceans and I created this. I'm not a loon. I said I am one with the infinite source. You are one with the infinite source. And if you are to get to the infinite source, what people would call God, I don't really use that word so much anymore because it is very loaded with a lot of misunderstanding. And I like to be precise in my languaging. Well, when you use, things like the infinite source, or that it's energy, or that it's consciousness, people then are starting to understand it's not a person. Scrub it out of your brain. It's not a person. This was very hard for me. You know why this was very hard for me? This was very hard for me because I wanted God to be a man in the sky that had my back, that I could pray to, that I thought was protecting me, that was how I connected with it, because it was a person. I needed that. And when that band-aid was ripped off, I realized, oh, why am I grasping for something out here to try to believe in when I could let go of all of that and come home to the infinite source right here? It's a choice. It's a choice. You don't have to do any of this. Not at all, right? You get to do what's right for you. Yep. Yep, God is a German. Because people have been telling us for years, God is a jealous God. And you know what I couldn't figure out about that? Jealous of what? Your God. Did anybody else think that God is a jealous God? I would hear that and I would say, what is this God? I wanted to raise my hand, but the church was like, yes, he's a jealous God. And I was looking around like, I didn't want to be the only one. Excuse me, what is this God jealous of? When this is God we're talking about. It's don't this person have everything? He got all of us. What what more does he want? And who is he jealous of? Who's his competition? And I had so many questions. Wasn't making sense, right? It was so I wanted to say, you know how you do the little finger in church when you want to go to the bathroom, you be, and the pastor's preaching and preaching, but your bladder is like, we've been here for 3 hours. That's the black church. And you be like this. You tip out to go to the bathroom. Well, I wanted to tip and ask a question, but it seemed very inappropriate because all these people were whipped up in the spirit. Oh my God, I think I'm in the wrong place. All right, let's continue. So I think that gives you some background on what has happened for me in my walk as an infinite being, that I'm an expression and an emanation of source. And it doesn't have a name, and it doesn't have a religion, and it doesn't have a book, and it doesn't have a will for you, and it doesn't need you to do anything, and it's not jealous, and it's not angry, and it didn't have wars, and it didn't fight with people. The infinite consciousness is one. And they're coming to this in spirituality, in science as well. Science is coming to this because science is seeing that consciousness underpins all of reality. Consciousness is it. Now, before we go any further, I got to introduce you to the incredible. We got a guest coming on for a quick minute. Hey, Minister Ashley, how you loving? How you loving? How you loving? So, family, this is the incredible mini star Ashley, and oh my goodness,
Hey,
Ritual Company, Ritual Biblical Company, right? Ritual
the Biblical
Biblical
Ritual
Company,
Company.
Biblical Ritual Company. Okay, and I got to tell you something, Ashley, you be going in on them on TikTok and Instagram. OMG. You
I learned from the best. I learned from the best. You have me laughing
OMG.
in stitches.
Oh my goodness. Because some of this stuff is funny, isn't it? Some of the things that we
Yeah,
learned while we were in church,
you got to
because
go
we didn't
down.
have the metaphysical understanding of it, right? We didn't have the deeper occult wisdom and knowledge that we have now. And we had to meditate to get that,
Exactly.
family. We had to meditate. We had to go through initiatory processes to understand what is really going on in the Bible.
Yeah,
Hi.
of course.
So Ashley,
All right. Mwah.
hi. And I asked Ashley to come through because
Love you too.
I asked Ashley to come on for a couple of minutes because Ashley is one of our teachers at the Christian Witches Convention. If you are not coming to the Christian Witches Convention next month in New Orleans, I don't know
Come on.
what you're waiting for. Run, don't walk, and get your ticket because the things that we will be teaching and sharing
Mhm.
together while we're at the Christian Witches Convention will be just this one is the fifth one. It's going to be beyond anything we have ever done before. Today, Ashley, I was at a place, one of the spaces that we'll be in for the Christian Witches Convention. I can't even talk about it. I left the place floating because I'm in New Orleans getting everything ready for us. Oh, it's going to be on and popping. When I tell you
Last
on
year was
and
one of
popping,
popping.
on and popping. So,
When you say
Ashley, I'm going to drop.
popping, that brings back memories.
From
It
last
brings
year,
back
right?
memories. Yeah.
Baby, we can't talk about that. You got to be here. You got to be there. So,
Yeah, you got to be
Minister
there.
Ashley, what are you teaching? Yes, at the Christian Witches Convention because you're a teacher there. And I still have your deck. You bought your decks there last year, sold out of your
Mhm.
decks that you created, your own
Yeah.
creation. Amazing. So, what are you going to be teaching
Thank
at the Christian Witches Convention?
I'm going to be teaching bibliomancy, and it's going to be a fun activity. I'm actually planning an activity. So instead of me just standing there giving instructions or walking people through, I'm going to have a fun activity for us to do, exercising bibliomancy.
Love it. And what is bibliomancy? What is that?
Well, bibliomancy like people traditionally typically use the Bible for divination or for magic. However, bibliomancy, the biblio means book. So any form of book. You can use a dictionary, you could use, a restaurant menu if you wanted to. But I'm going to use the Bible for this exercise.
Love it. And why do people need to really get into this book? Why do you work so much with this book? Why? Why?
Well, partially because I grew up in the church. My mother, her father was a deacon. And when my sister and myself were born, that we only went to church like every so often. And then by my teen years, I was steeped in the church because my aunt would take me to a holiness church, if you know about that. Skirts, long sleeves, head coverings, everything. And that was my closest, I guess, reach or grasp of anything mystical. So I already had like a mystical thirst, and the Bible would be the closest thing that I had to mysticism and spirituality. So I dove deep into the Bible, and when I became an adult, then that's when I joined the church and all these different ministries, and I threw myself into Bible study. So the Bible, I immersed myself in the Bible, and fast forward maybe about 15 years, that's when I started to dabble in occultism and symbolism, esoteric knowledge. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the same thing. This is what the Bible is talking about.
It's in there.
No, you need to go downstairs, please. I'm sorry. Okay, you can go ask your brother. I am so sorry. He does
It's all
usually.
good. It's all good. We all got kids. I have kids and
Okay,
grandkids.
I know. Look, here for like 20 plus minutes. I don't know. You know how kids are. You know how it is. As soon as you pick up that phone or you start to do something.
As soon. But before they were fine. But it's like, oh, wait a minute. All attention is not on me anymore. Wait a minute. Mm-hmm.
Exactly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's how my introduction to biblical mysticism started. And I just kept diving deeper and deeper and ran into people like you with all that biblical knowledge and, tying it all together. And from there, I just formed my own practices, and it keeps evolving. And I love it so much.
Oh my God. You are so good at it. It is a natural for you. You are so good at it. Like you are the person to bring that message to the world because what you're sharing, I don't think people even think about. And you get a lot of flack from the Christians too, just like I do. And it's okay.
Yeah, it's
how do
fun.
you it is very funny. Oh my goodness. Sometimes those comments on TikTok are so hilarious that sometimes I'm reading them and I'm just falling off my chair laughing because I did a video on TikTok, the Christian Witches TikTok, that Daniel was not a real person. Oh my goodness. And you know what's interesting what Christians usually say?
I seen that.
It is. It says so in the Bible. You should read the Bible. And it's very interesting.
Yep.
I'm reading the Bible. Yet I wonder if some of them are reading the Bible or if they're going by what the pastor told them about the Bible.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
It's them. They're listening. They're listening to what the pastor in the Bible studies. They're listening to that instead of researching, doing their due diligence. 2 Timothy 2:15. You got to do your own due diligence. And I found that like atheists or mysticism, people that are into mysticism and occultism, they actually do a lot of research and study. They don't come to this conclusion either God is not real, the Bible, or fill in the blank. they don't come to that conclusion lightly. They have done
That's right.
research. Then there's
And you know what else for me,
they have done.
Ashley? It was actually painful for
Oh,
me to come to some of the conclusions that I've had because I wanted to believe deep down in myself that Moses was a real person and not perhaps a powerful archetype, something even more powerful than this person being an actual historical person. I had a lot of deconstructing to do because it was so much was forced into my head about what they said this was, not what this is. They told me what it is. And it wasn't until I said, well, let me read it for myself. Because before, when I was reading it, I was reading it with the lens that they had put on me. It's like they say, here, put on these
mm-hmm.
glasses,
The
right?
filter,
I got
yeah.
these sunglasses.
Mm-hmm.
Like, put on these sunglasses, read the Bible. That's what the Bible is. But if you take these off and say, I think I'm just going to read it for myself, totally different experience. Totally different
Very,
experience. So you were
very
at the
different.
Christian Witches Convention last year. Did you have a ton of fun?
Mm-hmm. Had more fun
Ooh,
than I thought I
baby,
was
Saturday
going
night.
to have. Yes,
You
yeah,
did. You
it
had
was a
more
lot
fun
of
than you
fun.
thought. Why do you say that?
Yeah, I did have more fun. I was like a little stressed, then also like nervous, because I didn't know what to expect, and it
It
was
was
like a
your
new
first one. It
experience.
was your first Christian
Yeah,
Witches
my first
Convention.
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, um, yeah. So another thing that I really enjoyed about, besides just the party, the party, and
Well, the
then
party
like
is
we did
insane.
the ritual, coming together with people of like spirit and likeness, and there was part of craft. Nothing was forced. Everything was in flow. And another
Mhm.
real pivotal point for myself is being able to. It was several. Okay, one of the first ones was the first night that we were there, and we had like the ceremony, or I guess I don't know if it was. To me, it felt like a worship service, sort of, kind of. But
Mhm.
I, I'm
We do
sorry.
that. We do
Yeah,
that.
and yeah, we do. And what I really found to be comforting is because, like, as a young adult, I was in a dance ministry, and I really missed dancing. And you allowed me to, like almost dance in the spirit. You know how
Yes.
they say in the church, dance in the,
Oh, yes.
and I would only do that, being that I don't go to church, I would only do that like at home every once in a while.
Mhm.
And to be able to allow myself to do that in front of other people, besides my children,
Mhm.
they always see
Mhm.
mom dancing, but yeah, and that was like the introduction to collective worship. That's one thing I sort of kind of miss from church, is like the collective worship, if that makes sense, like the raising of the frequency and vibration and coming together and being vulnerable in a space with other people. And that was one of the first things that really helped to set the tone for the entire weekend.
Mm. And we're a pretty eclectic group of people. Would you say, like, the people who
Mhm.
come to the Christian Witches Convention are all so different and so amazing and so unique and so gifted? And so I just love it. I love it. And the ones that are registering for this year, phenomenal. So I want to get back to chatting about Yahweh. So I'm going to let you run. But what do you want to
Okay.
say to anyone who's even thinking about coming to the Christian Witches Convention this year? Family, don't watch us on YouTube all the time. Come.
Yeah, please do come. It's definitely worth your time, your investment, everything. Like you would leave the experience refreshed and renewed, and a sense of family and inclusion. It's like, yeah, we can feel connected online, which I still feel very connected. However, when you come in person, that energy, the energetic exchange is different. They say the same thing in church, like, oh yeah, you may watch it on TV or you may hear it on the
Yeah.
radio, but when you
But
come
it ain't nothing
into
like
the
being in
building,
church.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like it's that type of it of collectiveness. It's not like church, but it's like that collectiveness. You know, you coming together, fellowship, as they would call it.
Fellowship.
Yeah, yeah, fellowship. That is very important too, because like I'm a very reclusive person. I like chit chat with people here and there, but especially being that now I have transitioned in my spiritual awareness and spiritual practices. Not everybody is there with me, so like I could find myself having a regular conversation and then immediately go into the mysticism part. So to have people that I can talk to and they know exactly what I mean, and they're not looking at me like, "Hey, you're a little weird."
Like you have three
I have
heads.
weirdos.
Like, what?
Yeah,
Where did you come from? Right?
yeah,
Let's look at
exactly.
this super chat. Listening and reading with mental blinders on, guilty myself. Even when the text was contradictory, I just move past it and say, you got to have faith. That's what they tell us to do. So glad for the awakening and teachers like Rev Val. Oh, love it. And thank you for this super chat. Let me get this bell. Wait a minute. I got my bell. Money in the vortex. I love that. I love it. All right, Minister Ashley. I am so thankful. And Minister Ashley, you are going to be again with us next week.
Mhm.
And next week, you and I are going to have a conversation about rebel women of the Bible.
Yes, the rebellious ones. We should already be included in
We're doing
there.
Jezebel. We're doing
Yeah.
Lilith. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
We've got to go
Yeah.
there. We've got to go there,
Mhm.
family. So stay tuned next week because we're going to break down
Yeah.
the rebel women of the Bible. So thank you, Minister Ashley, for
Looking
dropping
forward to it.
by. I'll see you
Thank
next
you
week.
guys.
Okay, peace and love.
All
Take
right.
care.
Many blessings.
Thank you. You too. So that is Minister Ashley, and she will be teaching at the Christian Witches Convention. Oh my goodness. Yes, but religions are such a low vibration way to go. Yes, God's Almighty. Absolutely. Okay, now let's get into what the scholars are saying about Yahweh and how we know this is not conjecture, how we know that Yahweh is not God. Are we ready? Let's go and screen share. So, we've already talked about what the infinite consciousness is. And I do want to say this that don't shoot the messenger. Just because I'm bringing this information forward doesn't mean that it's really here to um, offend sensibilities because I always want to be very compassionate about how I talk about these things and even bring the truth in a very powerful fashion. I don't set out to disrespect people or their beliefs or what they want to do. That's up to them. I'm always going to share where I'm coming from and I'm going to share it powerfully. Yet I don't want to share it in such a way that I bash anything else that anyone else is doing because there's no reason to bash other people when you share where you're coming from. So I just want to say that. The other thing I want to say about getting to the juice about Yahweh and how did Yahweh come to be God? How did this happen? I want to say that this is not an easy thing to do because we're going back in history and we're seeking to parse out what happened and when and why. And Bible scholars have been working on this for centuries. So this is not just a new question. This is something that has been going on for a very long time that we really want to get to the bottom of. Now, let's talk about Yahweh's origins. What's the oldest? What's the oldest? The oldest. The first thing, wait a minute, let me make sure of what this looks like on screen share because I want to make sure. Yeah, I think that's a good view on screen share. What is the oldest mention of Yahweh? 1400s, between 1400 and 1300 BCE, which is very recent. When you consider that the earth has been here for billions of years, and when you consider that some form of humans have been here for hundreds of thousands of years, 1400 to 1300 BCE is fairly recent when you consider it. And where did we get this mention of Yahweh? It was on an Egyptian stele, like a like the Moabite stone kind of thing. that refers to the Shasu of Yah. It didn't say Yahweh, YHW. Now, this Shasu, who were the Shasu? The Shasu were a group that were sort of like nomadic, that were southeast of Canaan. Now, in the religion of the Israelites, earliest religion of the Israelites, Yahweh was not the only God. That's a shocker. The Israelite people were not always monotheistic. They tell us they were, yet anthropology, archaeology, and the study of, yeah, anthropology as well, the study of ancient peoples and textual criticism also informs us that the Israelites were not always monotheistic. Okay. So let's talk about the Canaanite pantheon because there's a mashup here going on between some of the Canaanite gods and Yahweh. So let's go to the Canaanite pantheon. And you may say, well, the Bible says that the Israelites and the Canaanites were arch rivals, arch enemies. Well, that's what we were told in church. Yet the earliest Israelites were likely Canaanites. That's a view from Bible scholars. I didn't make that up. Now, let's go to El. So El was the supreme god, the head of the Canaanite pantheon. And if we know El, we know that El had 70 sons. And one of the sons of El was Baal or Baal, right? Whom was who one of our rebel women of the Bible that we're going to be talking about next week, Jezebel, was a priestess to Baal because she has a theorific name. And what is a theorific name? A theorific name, a theophoric name. A theophoric name is a name that incorporates the God that you worship in your name. So Israel tells us that originally they were the people of El, just like all the angel names, Michael, Gabriel, right? Raphael, tells us that originally these would have also been believers in El. Who was El? El was the father, the very loving father kind of deity. His consort was Asherah. And he had 70 sons, and he's actually in the Bible in Psalm 82. We'll talk about that in a moment. And El presided over a council. Does it sound familiar? It goes all the way back to the Anunnaki. This is just a reiteration or a regurgitation, a repetition of the originals, which were the Anunnaki, where in the original Anunnaki story, it was Anu. Anu was the sky god, the one who he didn't live down here on the earth, like Enki and Enlil and all of them, and Ninhursag and Anna, and they were running all around earth. Anu didn't live down here. He lived in a space station above the earth in the sky. And Elijah tells you he went up there. Enoch tells you he went up there. Because we have a lot of stories of people who went up there. Well, anyway, I knew the original Sky Father did preside over a council. The council was more like 12, though, of Anunnaki. It wasn't 70 originally, going all the way back when the Anunnaki were here. Well, this later version of the story, by the time it got to Canaan, this version of the story changed over thousands of years, right? The story morphs and people change and people add and massage the story. Well, El had 70 sons, and one of the sons of El was Baal. And Baal was a storm god, okay? thunder and all of that. Because in that region of the world, they had these storms and they were thunderstorms. And so, therefore, it would make sense that they would have a storm god, right? Now, El, loving Father God, Baal, thunder, storm God. Can you see how we're starting to get these two versions of the God that we have in the Bible? Because God in the Bible seems very schizophrenic. He ping pongs back and forth between being a loving person and not a loving person. And that's because that being that is now in the Bible as the one true God was pasted over all of the different gods that the Bible is originally telling you about, yet it does leave clues. So if you dig deep enough, you can see, oh, this is talking about different people. Well, one of the sons, like I said, was Baal. Later, as time went on, Baal became more prominent than El, and Baal and El were sort of conflated. And then Baal was the wife, had Asherah as his wife. But then later on, as it continued to morph, Yahweh possibly could have been one of the 70 sons of El. We don't have proof of that. Could possibly have been woven in there. And then Yahweh comes as this God of a minor deity, one of the 70, if at all in the 70. Definitely was not the boss. It wasn't El. And Yahweh starts to come in, and he is a God of war. Makes a lot of sense when you read the Bible, right? And he now starts to sort of go back and forth with Baal, as you can see in the Bible. Yahweh and Baal are always going back and forth, back and forth. So let's look at what the scholars say. I'm going to present 5 scholars and what they're saying about Yahweh. And I'm also going to give you a very good resource where you can really go and you can look at Yahweh and see. It's very simple to see in history the development of Yahweh. I mean, this is not a secret. All right, so what are we talking about? I thought it would be helpful for us to look at a map, because if you look at a map, it will help us to understand these things. This is where the land of Canaan was, okay? And you have, this is then and this is now. So it's in Lebanon, Syria, Israel, Palestine. And as you can see, they're still fighting over the same thing, God. Supposedly God, they're still fighting over it. These wars that they were doing back then, they're still doing now. When does it end? I think we can end it. I think we can end it. I think we can come into peace. I have confidence in that. So when you talk about Canaan, the Egyptians are over here. So when you talk about Canaan and you talk about down here in Edom and Midian, this is kind of where the origin of Yahweh was, because up here we had El and Baal. And so these people down here in Edom and Moab and Midian, they moved sort of north, because it was southeast of Canaan, where this Yahweh of the Shasu was spoken of. And then when these people moved north, it's possible that they then brought Yahweh with them, their little, just a tribal god, just a local deity, nothing special. Your run of the mill garden variety local deity. That's all. And met up with these people in Canaan who were into El and El's 70 sons, and El and his consort Asherah presided over the 70 sons in a divine council. And then as time went on, Yahweh is starting to come in, Baal is starting to be at odds with Yahweh. Yahweh is starting to be pushed more and more by the people. And what happened? Well, over the years, we'll come back to the Bible. Over the years, well, let's look at what happened. Let's look from the perspective of the Bible scholars. Now, all this is in the book. The Real God is not in the Bible. The ebook is out now for all of you who bought the ebook. Yay! And for all of you who are members on the Valerie Love YouTube channel and the Christian Witches YouTube channel, you have this book as a gift. because you get all my books as I write them as a gift. Another book is coming to you very soon. Yay! Ebook versions. The paperback and the hardcover special edition signed copies will be coming out on Kickstarter later this year. So keep heads up. Please, family, would y'all do me a solid? Could y'all do me a solid? When you go to The Real God Is Not in the Bible on Amazon, here it is. The Real God Is Not in the Bible on Amazon. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all of you buying the book and keeping the book on the bestseller list. It stays on the bestseller list. I freaking love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. I'm just going to take a screenshot of that one. But when you look at this, there are only 8 reviews, family, only 8 reviews, and we actually require hundreds of reviews on this book. So please, if you have read this book or are reading this book, please leave a review. Reviews are so helpful. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you, I love you, I love you. Please leave a review. Okay, so going back, let's look at what the Bible scholars have to say about Yahweh. Mark Smith, in the book, The Origins of Biblical Monotheism. Let me show you the book, The Origins of Biblical Monotheism. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. This is an affiliate link. Thank you for supporting the channel. I love you. I love you. I love you. Thank you so much for your love and kindness. Y'all are so amazing. I love you. I saw earlier, Discerning Spirituality, you said I should read the Pyramid Code. I'll look it up. I will look it up. Okay. That book, oh, a knot. Ooh, a knot was the one would take your head off. Anat was a warrior goddess. Okay. Oh, yes, you can leave a Google review if you purchase from the website. Thank you so much for that. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Reviews, reviews, reviews. Okay, so you saw the book, The Origins of Biblical Monotheism. Like, where did monotheism come from? Is monotheism really a thing? Well, let's look at it. Here, we've got one Bible scholar who is Mark Smith. Mark S. Smith, this is what he said. Originally, Yahweh may have been one of the 70 sons of El. Does that sound like the supreme God of the whole universe? It don't sound like that to me. Ruling over Israel as his allotted portion. They had territories. This passage, Deuteronomy 32, 8 through 9, retains a memory of a polytheistic worldview where Yahweh was part of a larger divine family. He's telling you that polytheism is in the Bible, even though they told you that the Bible espouses monotheism. The Bible doesn't espouse anything. The Bible doesn't take a position. The Bible is simply making statements, and it has no inherent meaning. John Day, he is the author of Yahweh and the Gods and Goddesses of Canaan. This is what he says. There is considerable evidence that Yahweh originated in the region of Seir, Edom, Teman. This is indicated by both biblical texts and Egyptian inscriptions. The one I referred to earlier, Yahweh in the land of the Shasu. The name Yahweh may have been brought north by groups such as the Kenites or Midianites, and only later became identified with the God of Israel. So if we go back to our map, we see Midian is way down here, where present-day Saudi Arabia. Edom is present-day Jordan. Moab, Edom and Moab would be Jordan right now. Well, these people down here could have been the ones, as we were talking about, somewhere down here in the southeast of Canaan was this Yahweh person. Very, very regional, local, not global. And some of these people came north, and then these people up here who were with El and Baal, El and his 70 sons, of which Baal was one, they syncretized Yahweh into these 70 sons, quite possibly, right? This is what the scholars are telling us. Now, and they're saying that the name Yahweh maybe have come from the Midianites. So look how far south the Midianites are, right? And they're going north, and they're bringing their religious beliefs with them. Now, Frank Moore Cross, who is the author of Canaanite Myth and Hebrew Epic, says Yahweh was not originally a Canaanite deity, but he was grafted onto the Canaanite religious world. That means Yahweh came from someplace else other than in Canaan. He wasn't part of the original El, Asherah, and the 70 sons. The process by which Yahweh came to absorb the functions and titles of El was gradual but decisive in the religion of early Israel. So what he is telling us that gradually over time, Yahweh becomes El. Thomas Romer in the book, The Invention of God. I also have the link for you for that book as well, if you'd like to look at it. The Invention of God. Let me give you the link for this one if you desire to look at it on, because I love reading books. I have so many books that I read. In The Invention of God, because the whole concept of Yahweh is an invention. It is absolutely an invention. Okay. And that's the book. Yahweh Enlil. This is a very good question. And I am Yahweh Enlil. It's a very good question because Yahweh is many beings in the Bible. Yahweh is El, Yahweh became Baal, Yahweh became Enlil, Yahweh became Enki, because when you take one name and you plaster it all over everything, you lose all of the entities that were originally spoken of. So it's very difficult to piece it out. So it's not as simple. It's very much more nuanced than that. I'm going to come off screen share for a second. So I've seen people say, oh, Yahweh is Enlil. It's not that simple because first you're talking about a huge time span. The time span between the Anunnaki and when Enlil was strong arming people and the absolute disciplinarian and the absolute, destroyer, and Enki being the more loving, kind person. The time frame from Anu, Enki, Enlil, Inanna, and then Hersag and all that up until Yahweh, vast. It's a vast time frame in between. We could be talking about not only tens of thousands of years, we could be talking about hundreds of thousands of years. Vast distinction in time. Because Yahweh, the first time anyone heard anything of Yahweh is 1300 BCE, 1400 to 1300 BCE. And we're talking could be hundreds of thousands of years. So we can't say, oh, Yahweh is Enlil. That is a too simplistic approach to a very complex. We got a puzzle here, family, right? We got a puzzle pieces that we're putting together. So it would be a little too simplistic to say, oh, Yahweh is Enlil. It's more, it goes deeper than that. And we've got to follow that cookie crumb trail through all of the years so that we can really, truly understand what is happening in the Bible. And this is how I see it happening. And you all tell me if this makes sense for you. So originally we had, when it comes to gods and a pantheon, we had Anu, which is a sky father, and we had the divine council, which he ruled over, which was only 12. It was not 70. Okay. And then over time, that's Sumer. Over time, Akkadian, Babylonian, Assyrian, all of these Persian, all of I said Babylonian, all of these empires came and went and they morphed the gods into their own thing. So, and they even have different names. So when you look at some of the Babylonian names, they're different than the Sumerian names, but they're talking about the same being or the same kind of being. So there were so many of them, but later on, someone came and put Yahweh over all of them. Yahweh is all of them now because it's only Yahweh. The Yahwehs did that. And I'll tell you when the Yahwehs did it. I'll show you because I have a timeline to share with you. So it's complex. I won't say it's very complex, but I will say it's a little bit gnarly. You have to really put these things together. You have to do your detective work. And I was never satisfied with simple answers because it didn't seem like that really gave you the full picture. And I really want to know what happened. That's what I want to know. Okay, the invention of God. This is what Thomas Romer says in The Invention of God. The cult of Yahweh likely originated in the South, like we talked about, perhaps among groups related to the Midianites or Edomites. You see, multiple Bible scholars and multiple scholars are saying this. The biblical texts reflect this, locating Yahweh's first appearance in areas outside of Canaan. The transformation of Yahweh into a universal God. It was a transformation. Yahweh was not a universal God. There was a transformation that took place. It was the result of ideological and political work, people with their ideas and politics, especially in the exilic and post exilic periods when they were in Babylon and they were having this horrible time being in captivity and bondage yet again, the Israelites, and saying to themselves, it's probably because we didn't worship Yahweh like we needed to. And then we have all of the reforms of Josiah, Hezekiah. And next thing you know, it's Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. We don't want to hear nothing else. It's just Yahweh, it's Yahweh, it's Yahweh. And get rid of everything else, it's Yahweh. And then the people put up the things again that were not Yahweh, like Baal and Asherah and all that. And they were like, no, it's Yahweh, it's Yahweh, it's Yahweh. Now, the Bible never told you Yahweh was God and you ought to worship Yahweh. The Bible gave you a report of what was happening, that Baal and Yahweh were going back and forth, and church told you pick a side, pick Yahweh from the Bible. The Yahwehs are still working. This is thousands of years later. The Yahwehs of 500, 600 BCE, and here we are in 2025. This is 2,500 years later, and the Yahwehs are still, that idea of those holy roller extremists, religious extremists called the Yahwists, look them up, Yahwists, an extreme group of religious zealots that only believed in Yahweh, and it was Yahweh, and it was Yahweh, it was Yahweh, they redacted the Bible. They redacted the Bible to make it all say Yahweh or Lord or Adonai and wipe out everybody else. Wow. So now we have to go back and piece who said this, who said that, who said that, who said that. Romer highlights how the Bible itself preserves memory of Yahweh's foreignness. See, it's in the Bible. And how his monotheistic identity was carefully constructed over time. Over time, they told you that he was the only God, because nowhere in the Bible does the Bible say that there was only one God. The Bible doesn't say that. The Bible is telling you that this person said that there's only one God, and this person liked Baal, and this person liked Yahweh. The Bible is simply a storyteller. It doesn't pick a side. Church is what told you, me, the world. Religion told us what to make of what we were reading in the Bible. That's our big problem. That's why we're so confused. That is our big problem, that we got mind fucked. That is our big problem. And you got to unfuck your mind. You got to unfuck your mind. Now, I got this from the description of the book because I thought this description was just incredible when it comes to the invention of God. Do you understand they invented Yahweh? God, God, Allah, they're all inventions. I'm not saying this to disrespect anyone's religion. Everyone can think whatever they want to think. I'm letting you know that we have historical proof they're inventions. Okay, here's what it says in the book's description, because I was reading this, I thought this was so fascinating. It says Romer draws on a long tradition of historical, philological, and exegetical work, and on recent discoveries in archaeology and epigraphy to locate the origins of Yahweh in the early Iron Age when he emerged. When he emerged, how you gonna be a god of everything and been the god forever, but you emerge with a small group of nomadic people called the Shasu? You ain't nothing but a little. You got a tribe. That's about the best you got. You don't even have a whole nation. You have a nomadic tribe. That's how Yahweh started. Okay. When he emerged somewhere in Edom or in the northwest of the Arabian Peninsula as a god of the wilderness and of storms and war. Makes sense, doesn't it? He's a storm god. He's a war god. That's how you can see that when those people had Yahweh and they traveled north and they met up with the Canaanite people who had Baal, you could see why Baal and Yahweh would have some kind of, those groups would have some kind of clash, because no, our God is the God of storms and war. No, our God is the God of storms. You can see why they would have a clash. He became the sole God of Israel in Jerusalem in fits and starts. It didn't happen just like that. As other gods, including the mother goddess Asherah, were gradually sidelined. Now, they like to say that the goddess was gotten rid of because of misogyny. I don't believe that. I don't see evidence for that. What I see evidence of is they got rid of all the other gods other than Yahweh. It wasn't just Asherah, because if they just wanted to get rid of the feminine aspect of God, they just would have gotten rid of Asherah. No, they got rid of El, they got rid of Baal, they got rid of Anat, they got rid of Isis, Osiris. They got rid of other gods that were male too. That's how crazed and fanatical the Yahwehs were. Can you understand? They weren't just trying to get rid of the goddess, they were trying to get rid of everything that wasn't Yahweh. This is the nature of fanaticism. But it was not until a major catastrophe, the destruction of Jerusalem and Judah, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, that Israelites came to worship YHWH as the one God of all, creator of heaven and earth, who nevertheless proclaimed a special relationship with Judaism. This is the only one God. And now, oh my goodness, we're in dire straits. We've been destroyed and conquered once again. We must have done something wrong. We got to get rid of all these other gods except just Yahweh. It's Yahweh, it's Yahweh, it's Yahweh, it's Yahweh. They redid the Bible. It's just Yahweh, it's just Yahweh. And that's what we got. So naturally, let me come off screen share for a minute and say something about Christianity. Christianity would not have this problem if we hadn't stolen the Hebrew Bible from Jewish people. And if you listen to Rabbi Tovia Singer, Rabbi Tovia Singer, let me put him in the chat. Does anybody here watch Rabbi Tovia Singer? Oh my goodness, he will light your fire all the way up. Oh my goodness. Don't listen to him if you're not ready, because Rabbi Tovia Singer, I'm going to show him to you. He will absolutely smash all these things that Christians say from their own Bible. From their own Bible. Let me bring him up, because this is one of my favorite rabbis. Even though he's very hard to listen to, it's very difficult to listen to Rabbi Tovia Singer, because he will tell you the true, straight up chaser, and it's very difficult to listen to, but he has the facts. He has the facts. He has the facts when it comes to that. I'm not saying that I agree with everything that he talks about. I don't. There's no person that I agree with everything they say. And they say, here's something to keep in mind. If you agree with everything that someone says, if you and some other person agree on everything, one of you is not thinking. Because we don't agree. Yay! Because is there anyone that I agree everything that they say? No. There's no one I agree. Close friends, anyone. There's no one in my life that I agree with everything that they say. My kids, people I love, we disagree. We disagree about different things, perhaps many things. we love. That's why we don't have to fight over what we disagree about. There's nothing that says you have to fight over what you disagree about. Everyone's allowed to have their own mind. So Rabbi Tovia Singer, while I don't agree with everything that he says, he is quite an informed. I find him to be very intelligent, well read. He knows what he's talking about, and he rips the Christian thing to shreds. Okay, that's right. Not even your husband. Why would you agree with everything someone else says? It's if we all have our own mind, and we ought to use it. Okay, so here's the deal. Why did Christians? This is the question I've always been answering. I don't know. Did any of y'all ask this question? Why did Christians take the Jewish people's holy book? Why did we do that? Because Jesus was Jewish and James was Jewish. And so the beginning of our Christian religion was Judaism. Why did we take the whole Jewish Bible and append it to some new books? It doesn't make sense. When you read it, it doesn't make sense. Yet I'm very happy that it happened, not for religious reasons, because it's not coherent. Like Genesis to Revelation, that's not a novel. It's very incoherent. Because it's different books written by different people over thousands of years, and we don't even know who wrote it. Now that's shocking. We don't know who wrote it because we don't have the originals of the Bible. We don't even have the originals. We don't even have copies of the originals of the Bible. We don't even have, according to Bible scholars, copies of the originals of the Bible. Wow, we're missing a lot. Okay, so because we now have the Jewish book, the Hebrew Bible, connected to the Christian Bible, because wouldn't you think the Christian story would just start with Jesus? Matthew. Why do we need Genesis to Malachi? That's a different religion. I don't know why people are so confused about this. You took someone else's, the Christian religion, these founding fathers that said, let's put these books together. They took a holy book that belonged to another group of people. Do we not see that? These was the Jewish people's holy book. And African people, I got something to say to y'all. All y'all black people that just love Jesus. Y'all ain't got nothing to do with this because ain't none of this shit come from Africa. We're really confused in the black community because ain't none of this shit ours. We took some stuff from Syria and Lebanon and Palestine, and you're trying to apply it to your life. Why, black people? But I digress. Because this is for all people. I talk to all people, all faith walks, all colors. Everybody is welcome here. We are one. Yet I do really push back on black people's allegiance to a system that sanctified slavery. It wasn't the Bible that sanctified slavery because the Bible didn't tell you that you should have slaves. The Bible reported to you that someone said, namely probably Paul, hey, treat your slaves good. The Bible didn't tell you what to think about that one way or the other. The Bible tells you this is what Paul said. In church, they told you, oh, it's in here, it came from God. You got to do it. Do you see? Do you see why billions of people on this planet are confused? Billions of people on this planet are confused. And I mean for us to be unconfused. Because there's no spirit of confusion in the infinite source. None. It's clarity. Perfect clarity. All right, let's continue. I always find it very intriguing that a witch is the one teaching about the Bible. Call that a role reversal. Call that a plot twist. Oh, let me tell you something about, I'm so glad you said this about Paul and Saul. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something interesting that the Bible scholars say about Saul and Paul. They said it was a reworking of the Saul that was after David. I'm like, oh my God. Wait a minute. maybe Paul never existed. And maybe this Saul person that was out to kill all the people, maybe he was an invention based on the Saul of David, who was, they were doing the same thing. Just a thought. We got to talk about that. Frank reversal, right? Crypto Almighty. Let's continue with these Bible scholars and what they're saying about Yahweh so we can be real clear about what that source, the infinite sources. I don't think anyone ought to be confused about the infinite source. That's too important of a thing to be unclear about. Michael Coogan. The Old Testament, a historical and literary introduction to the Hebrew scriptures. Yahweh was originally one of many gods worshipped in Israel and Judah. Many gods, many gods. He was just one of many gods. Only later did the idea emerge that Yahweh was the only God that exists. That was much later. He was hanging in there with all the other gods. And it says it in the Bible because the Bible is telling you about the back and forth between Baal and Yahweh. The earliest texts show Yahweh as a God of storms and war. This is so now we are understanding, we have a picture of this God in Midian, Edom, north, southeast of Canaan, with a group of people called the Shasu, a nomadic tribe. And this was a one God among many. And he was a God of storms and war. And then when they migrated up to Canaan, Yahweh was kind of infused with the Canaanite pantheon, and first as one of the 70 sons, but then conflated like El, Baal, and Yahweh. There's a lot going on there between the three of them, a lot going on there. His unique identity was developed gradually. They developed. What other way can you say that they made it up? Because they are making up an identity for this God gradually as they're going along. They're making more of the story up, making more of the story up. And I don't think any of us ought to believe what other people made up thousands of years ago. I think we're free to make up our own minds. His unique identity was developed gradually through religious reforms and national trauma, especially the Babylonian exile. So really what Coogan is telling us is that people, they crafted this God. And that's why I say in the book, gods don't make humans, humans make gods. And then we worship the gods we make. Michael Heiser. The Unseen Realm, Recovering the Supernatural Worldview of the Bible. And this is maybe not as academic as the other ones are scholarly, but this is what he says, and this is exactly what I have found. Michael Heiser hits the nail on the head. He says that there was a divine council worldview behind much of the Hebrew Bible. And in Deuteronomy 32, in Psalm 82, you see that Yahweh was a member of a pantheon. Psalm 82 is your smoking gun. I'm going to show you, before I show you the timeline, so that we're clear that Yahweh was developed into a God. Yahweh did not start off God of the universe. Let's look at Psalm 82. I brought it up for us. God stands in the divine assembly. He judges among the gods. There was a council. This goes all the way back to the Elohim and the Anunnaki. There was a council. The God they're talking about here was Anu. He presided over the council. Of who? He judges among the gods. Psalms is telling you there was more than one God. There was many gods. And that the God was judging among the gods. Doesn't say angels. No, but they put divine beings here. So they're like, we got to clean that up because that looks too much like there's more than one God. Yeah, because when they redacted the Bible, they wanted it to be only one God, but there was never just one God of the Bible. That wasn't how the Bible rolled. The Bible was always polytheistic. Okay? Now, even in the beginning, in Genesis, it's polytheistic. Here's the timeline. Yahweh's evolution, you mean to tell me this God evolved from being a member of the divine council to being the sole deity of the whole universe? So you see 1400 to 1200, Midian. 1200 to 1000, integration into Israelite religion. 1722 BCE, monolatry. Monolatry is where they worship Yahweh, but they still acknowledge that other gods are around. 722 to 586 BCE, rise of monotheism, those conquests from the Assyrians, the Babylonians. The Assyrians were super bloody. I think even more bloody and bloodthirsty than the Romans. That's hard to beat the Romans with bloodthirst. 586 to 516, Babylonian exile. This is the destruction of the temple, and this is where the monotheistic beliefs really start to take hold, and Yahweh has supremacy in Jewish thought. 516 to 570, Second Temple destruction. In the Second Temple period, we know that the Second Temple, supposedly, according to the historians, was destroyed in 70 CE, right? And then the whole idea of a divine council, of all of that goes away. Now it's just Yahweh. And then they pass that on to us. Here's my conclusions. Yahweh is not God. He was elevated to the position of supreme God over centuries of political upheavals, war, and religious reforms. People were having lots of experiences. They needed a God to save them. Jehovah, which is a form of Yahweh, YHWH, that's what Jehovah's Witnesses use. That's not God either. It's the same as Yahweh. That's not God. None of it is. And here is, I'll come off screen share, and here's my final word on this. We've talked in previous episodes that El Elyon is not God. Yahweh is not God. The Elohim is not God. None of those in the Bible are God, the supreme, infinite source, infinite consciousness. So people ask me, do I believe in God? I don't believe in a God. I don't believe. I think belief is for chumps. After years of being a believer, what did that get me? It did not get me to the truth, beloved. No, I'm not a believer. No, I know. I know the infinite source for myself. And that's what I would recommend for everyone and encourage everyone. Have that knowing within yourself by going deep within yourself and doing the work to rid your consciousness of those beliefs that we were taught. I want to say this. There's one other thing I do want to say before we conclude. And we have the mystery school tonight. So if you want to join us in the mystery school, I'm going to put that link in the chat as well, because the mystery school meets on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And it is absolutely amazing. I freaking love the mystery school. And we'll be talking about some of these things tonight. And if you would love to join the mystery school, I'm going to pop it in the chat, the link. But this is what I want to say to us about cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance. What is cognitive dissonance? I write about this in the book. That cognitive dissonance means that information truth hits our consciousness, hits our brain, and it disagrees with beliefs we have held for a very long time. Like, I want to believe Jehovah is God. I want to believe Yahweh is God, whether it's God or not, whether it's true or not. But that's what I believe. And what happens is that when the truth hits your brain, there's a dissonance, right? There's a disruption because you're seeing something different than what you believed. And what does that do? Thank you so much for telling me about the super chat. Yay! Money in the vortex. Money in the vortex. Love it. Love it. Love it. Money in the vortex. Money in the vortex. Love that. Love that. That when we have this cognitive dissonance, this disruption, right? That I believed Jehovah. That's what I grew up believing. I grew up in the cult of Jehovah's Witnesses. I believe Jehovah. Then this hits my truth from history, archaeology, textual evidence, all of this hits my brain that this ain't the be all and all God. Because I'm now in dissonance, two different things are going on that don't get along. I have to resolve that dissonance so that I won't be in pain. Does everybody understand what I'm talking about? So, this is what we do. We either accept the truth into our consciousness, which is what I work very hard to do. I mean, it's not always easy. Or we make up a reason why that new piece of truth that's hitting our brain can't be right. So we get to stay in our old stuck belief. And usually, what people do in that scenario is that they stay stuck in the belief by saying, well, the Bible says so, or my pastor said so. And the biggest reason that people could give me about why Daniel is a real person, Daniel's not a real person from the Bible, neither is Moses. A lot of these Bible characters never existed, never existed. And the reason that they said this is cognitive dissonance hitting your brain because we believed in Moses, we believed in Daniel. Now, cognitive dissonance is hitting your brain that Moses never existed. He's probably talking about Sargon the cat. The Bible writers probably made up a composite Moses figure and made a hero. No different from if you made Harry Potter. He's a hero, or Superman. But I don't think Superman and Krypton are real. Kryptonite, I don't think that's real. We understand when we hear Superman, we know that we're hearing something that is not real. When we hear Daniel, oh, he's real. Why? Do you know the best reason that they could give me that Daniel was real? Because it's in the Bible. Wow. That's your evidence. Because it's in the Bible. Do you see the kind of cognitive dissonance that we're speaking of here? That the truth hits your brain, and because now it's disturbing, we've got to undisturb ourselves because we don't like being disturbed. It's not peaceful. And so therefore, we can no longer be in our own old little world anymore. We get disturbed. And so therefore, what do? We can either accept the new truth and get rid of the disturbance by dropping the old belief, but that's not what humans tend to do the first time we hear the truth. Because usually we don't like the truth. Krypton is a real place. Okay. Gotcha. We don't generally like to hear the truth. So this is what we do. We wrestle with it. We say, oh, maybe no, it's not. And we choose to side with what we've always been thinking, what's familiar, whether it's true or not, it's familiar. I know this thing. Like they tell you, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. Well, I don't want to know any devils. I want to know the truth. So this gets very difficult, family. This gets very difficult. And so you've got to resolve your cognitive dissonance by either accepting truth and dropping what you believed before, or just stick with what you believed before if it's making you happy and say, fuck truth. I don't need to know truth. I can just stay with my beliefs and just go to church and just be happy and just believe what I've been believing all along. Hey, if that works for you, do it. It wasn't working for me. I love you. I'll see you next Wednesday with the Rebel Women of the Bible. Baby, that's going to be delicious. Have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Witchy Wednesday. And I hope you get some fun out of reading the Bible. Love you. Peace.